Okay, this is Rookie Amateur Hour, people. Oh, I'm gonna have to zip up here. I want to get those mountains in the background while I'm talking. Boy, there's a nice shot. There's a nice shot of those mountains. Maybe I'll have to get closer. I want to share some of my information that I have on Joseph Smith as an Egyptologist. I want to share the information in a nutshell on the Sunstone presentation that I gave. It's been 3 years now. I don't think they're going to publish this, so I'm going to go ahead and share it as a series of videos with you. And I focus on two arguments that I believe are two really strong arguments that confuse the Latter-day Saints with the Egyptological understanding of what I believe Joseph Smith was trying to portray. Because this is a case where we can take a specific instance and give an overall generalized view. The Egyptians democratized their religion in later times. Instead of just the pharaoh, like the pharaoh Yunus, becoming deified, that actually began to happen with absolutely everybody. Everybody wanted in on the action, and they got their wish. So this is an interesting situation where, in facsimile number 1, Joseph Smith identified the figure on the lion couch as Abraham being ready to be sacrificed, and the professional Egyptologists have said, no, this is Osiris. Well, is there an answer to that? You bet there is. And then in facsimile number 3, the critics proclaim that Joseph Smith's definition of Pharaoh and King Pharaoh, as identified in the hieroglyphs above their head, is nothing similar to that, because the hieroglyphs themselves, they read, the Isis hieroglyph reads, the great Isis, mother of the gods, for the King Pharaoh, and for the Prince Pharaoh, or I think it's the other way around, and the Mot hieroglyph reads, Mot, Lady of the West. So not only did Joseph Smith misidentify these two, they are not mortals, they are deities, but they are also not men, they are women. So apparently Joseph Smith made a real gaffe in facsimile number 3. I'm going to show you with the Egyptian background that that's not necessarily so at all either. So there are some logical explanations that I want to discuss with this principle of the facsimiles. Now the sun is over the tops of the mountains all the way across the range. Absolutely beautiful sunrise. This chain of mountains goes all the way up over the Gilmore summit. Gilmore is an old mining town. Okay, I'm going to scoot over here. I'm going to scoot up here closer. You've seen the distant shot. Now I'm going to scoot up here closer and see if I can get some better background shots while I continue on discussing this Joseph Smith as an Egyptologist. Now, Robert Rittner, see if I can adjust this higher. You're not going to get to the mountains. Robert Rittner criticized the LDS folks for accepting this argument of Joseph Smith that Osiris can be Abraham, or Abraham can be Osiris, in facsimile number 1. In my thinking, the logical thing to do is to look at the Egyptological, religious background, political background, economic backgrounds. Let's see what the ancient Egyptians actually said. When we begin to do this, when we begin to understand who is Osiris? Okay, we've been told that Joseph Smith muffed the identification. Abraham is not Osiris. Osiris is not Abraham. So the question is, who is Osiris? Why is he so important? What kind of a role does he play in Egyptian religion? When we look at this, it's very interesting. There's variations on a theme with this myth of Osiris. In a nutshell, he is the god who was killed by his brother Set, and then he was dismembered, his 14 parts of his body scattered all over Egypt, and his sister Isis went throughout the land and gathered up his body and put them back together. And Osiris was resurrected, and she was helped by her sister Nephthys. Then Anubis, the jackal-headed deity that we see in figure number 1 in our facsimiles, he mummified the corpse. So Osiris was resurrected by Isis and Nephthys. He is essentially an Egyptian Christ figure, is how it works out to be. He is the figure of death and resurrection. I know Budge, in his book on Osiris, says that he's the personification of the fertility of the land. The winter time, the harvest doesn't happen, things die down. Then in the spring, things are brought back to life, and in the summer they flourish. So he's a nature myth, a personification of the nature myth as well in the Egyptians. These mountains are too beautiful to miss. I can't believe you want to listen to me and still look at all these gorgeous mountains. But, you know, people are weird. Let me get you a good close-up of that bell. It is quite the mountain. This is the first time I've seen it not in snow for the last several weeks. I've been up here several times trying to get this picture. It's about time. It's quite a mountain, isn't it? It's a beautiful mountain. Woo, that sun's bright. Klaus Baer, who was one of the Egyptologists who taught Hugh Nibley the ancient Egyptian language, here's what he had to say about Osiris. The title Osiris is given to the deceased in all the mortuary texts about 2200 BC. Originally, it was the dead king who became Osiris. Later on, it was democratized, and by 2200 BC, private individuals had begun to claim this privilege of, after being judged in the halls of judgment of the dead, to being associated with Osiris, and in fact, being identified with Osiris. And this is precisely what happened. After they were justified in the judgment of the dead, they lived again in a blessed existence in the netherworld, and according to the Egyptian way of thought, they are Osiris. An individual is Osiris. So this idea that a mortal Abraham can become Osiris is very realistic according to the ancient Egyptian religious thought forms. I think that's very interesting